All right, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Clark. I'm with the City of New Bedford's Department of Planning, Housing, and Community Development. We're grateful for you being here this afternoon. Unfortunately, our director, Patrick Sullivan, is under the weather and sends his apologies, but extends his best wishes. I wanted to welcome you to the annual Point in Time Count launch, our kickoff that begins a very busy 24-hour period here in our city. The Point in Time Count is a national effort to create a census about folks experiencing homelessness. Today, we join almost 400 other communities across the country in conducting this count so that we get a good idea and a good census as to the number of people who are living in our shelters, but also living unsheltered on our streets. Among its many responsibilities, the Department of Planning, Housing, and Community Development is responsible for the city's administration of the city's homeless programs and serves as the conduit for federal funding that New Bedford receives. Our department also provides ongoing strategic and administrative support to the Homeless Service Providers Network, or HSPN, which is our local continuum of care, our local planning group. Today's Point in Time Count arises from both our need to fulfill federal obligations in conducting this kind of census, but also as a part of the important work of our local HSPN and that which it undertakes in its efforts to prevent and end homelessness in our city. In order to launch this effort this afternoon, I want to give you a little bit more detail as to why we're doing this annual count, what goes into this, and how it's actually going to work this year. I'm going to follow that up by asking Reverend David Lima to say a few words, after which I'd like to acknowledge the hard work of and generosity of so many who have made this event possible. First, however, I'd like to introduce Mayor Mitchell to say a few words.
All right, well done, Jen. Well done, well done. Well, welcome everybody. I'll let that truck go by. All right. Welcome. As Jen said, this is, an important undertaking every year. And it's important for lots of reasons. We go through it because it is a federal requirement, but it's a lot more than that. New Bedford is a compassionate city. We care for people regardless of circumstance, and it's appropriate today that I think for the first time, at least in a while, that we actually hold this press conference outside and not inside in the comfort of the Ashley Room, and that's because it's so appropriate that we actually feel what folks are feeling. Not that anybody here in attendance has not experienced this. Many volunteers here, but also the people who've been running the HSPN for a while and who've been doing the Lord's work in bringing in folks to shelter, as well as reaching out to them to get their lives back on track. But we do this because out there on the streets is somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's mother, somebody's uncle, somebody's child, and we have a moral obligation to make sure that we know who they are, where they are, and what conceivably we can do to help them. The good news is that many people in this city who've lost their homes, who've lost shelter, have been helped and have been successfully put back on track. And there's tremendous work being done among the sheltered population, in our the sheltered homeless, that is to say, in our homeless shelters. But there's also a ton of work being done to bring in those who are unsheltered, those who are more conspicuous, those who are sleeping outside in the elements, including on nights like this, and it's going to be nasty tonight and tomorrow night. And so all the more reason that we have to work hard. But we do know, and that is hard work, because not everybody that we encounter is in a position mentally to recognize the need to get in and seek services. But we try, and we must. And there are countless success stories, and not every effort is a success in this way, but so many are. And what we know is that what we're committed to is trying and continuing to try, because those are people out there, and we're a city that has a big heart. So I want to thank a lot of folks in city government, of course, who've been deeply involved in the provider network. Jen has done tremendous work, working with both heart and mind to make what we do as effective as anywhere in America, and we do a really good job at it. Pat Sullivan also has provided tremendous support to Jen's efforts and has been involved in this for many years. Other folks in city government, of course, who've been involved: Damone Chaplin, our health director, as well as Cynthia Walquist, our director of community services. Both are in the thick of this as well. And then there's the nonprofit network, headed up by nonprofit Friends, headed up, of course, by Dave Lima, but with so many others. Pace and Keechler is here. I'm trying to squint so I can see everybody. Carl Alves from PACA, of course. Way too many people to name. I do want to thank our sponsors, of course, because these efforts, like many important efforts, are not for free. Folks at First Citizens Credit Union and some of the other sponsors have helped provide very necessary financial support to make the count both administratively effective, but also to increase our understanding of the challenge that we have in front of us. And I just want to make sure that I think I've hit I do want to mention the police chief. Chief Cadero couldn't be here today, but as folks know, long before he became chief, Joe Cadero put a tremendous amount of effort into facilitating the work of the provider network, and I know he feels very strongly about the efforts. I just wanted to close by just thanking everybody for this, for what you do. I mean, we take this effort seriously. It's more than, again, just an administrative exercise that the federal government makes us do. It's just about reaching out to others in need in our community, and it's through your hard work that there will be people who will tremendously benefit from the effort. We may not know who, we may not know how, but in some way know that your efforts count for an awful lot. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor. So to build off of the Mayor's remarks and to look up some of the specific reasons why we actually do conduct this pit each year, I think it's important to understand that by doing so and looking at a count within a 24-hour period, we get a good snapshot with very important data. That data helps us to understand the number and the characteristics of people who are experiencing homelessness right now. And it helps us to find out not just how many people are experiencing homelessness or who, but why they're experiencing homelessness. And it helps to shed light on how they got into these situations and what we can do to help. The PIT numbers we collect are used to proactively develop strategic measures to help those in the midst of crisis and to prevent and end their homelessness. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, requires that all of our continuums of care, undertake this count. Because New Bedford is one of these COCs, it's required to conduct this sheltered count as a condition of the funding that we receive. Our count is an important metric for measuring these things for the federal government, but more so for us locally, so that we can understand the extent to which we are moving the needle in the right direction and our strategies are working. So now we've talked about why we do this a little bit, I want to tell you about how we actually execute this. So beginning in a few minutes at 2 o'clock today and running until 2 o'clock tomorrow on January 31st, the city's HSPN will conduct the city's annual PIT count. And that PIT count's really a combination of three things: unsheltered, sheltered, and resource. So let me explain those three. Our teams of volunteers will conduct an unsheltered count of people that are throughout the city. Those are the folks that are living outside in places not meant for human habitation. When they encounter folks that might be unsheltered, they're going to offer to assist in any way possible. They'll offer them shelter and offer them what they might need. We have backpacks filled with donations from a very benevolent community, with warm clothing, with toiletries. We even have bus passes and small gift cards for food. And of course, we offer transportation to the overflow shelter and to get them into housing. They'll also receive our street sheet that has resources and information to help folks stabilize and to point them in the right direction to get the housing they need. In addition to that unsheltered piece, we have a sheltered section. Tonight, our agencies are going to rely on their professional staff that are going to be conducting a count of their people who are already in shelter. These are the folks that are in our emergency shelters, both individuals and families, as well as those in our transitional housing programs. And finally, we have volunteers and agencies that are located at our Pit Count home base, command center, our pit stop. This year, once again, it is, I like pit stop, that was my own thing. This year, once again, we are very grateful. It is at PACA at the Agnes Braz Community Center on Coggeshall Street. There are people who are unsheltered, can come in and benefit from this resource event. It includes a hot meal, haircuts, agency services, the South Coast Wellness Van will be there, and opportunities again for shelter. You can see there's a reoccurring theme about getting folks into shelter. The count of those unsheltered individuals residing on the streets can also be done inside of PACA this evening, where they find warmth and support. So those are the three big things that constitute this pit count. And our office has had the great privilege of coordinating these activities, but it's done so with the work of 15 of the most amazing people that constitute the Point in Time Committee, which is part of the HSPN. So I want to just take a second to recognize some of the team leaders in that. I can't recognize all 15, but I want to mention Lauren Lemieux from Catholic Social Services, who oversaw the donations. Leslie Poulin and Dina Mello from First Citizens Federal Credit Union, who have taken on everything related to volunteers. And trust me, we have well over 100 people volunteering, and that was quite an effort. Joe Maya from our Department of Planning, Housing, and Community Development, who worked on the targeting, the mapping, and the survey data and to the pit count. Danielle Brown from Stepping Stone, and Wendy Blues from Southeast Family Services, both of who have been the backbone of this event for many years, and they have overseen the entire resource event. They are the lubricant that makes all of this work, and we're grateful. And of course, the Reverend David Lima, our HSPN chair, who has headed up our outreach efforts with the media. So all of these folks, and the folks that are unnamed, and I apologize as part of that committee, they have been meeting every week since November and have, without hesitation, I don't even have to remind folks, they are there, they're present. They'll be there Friday morning. This is your reminder, folks. Friday morning to debrief about what works so that we make sure going forward we do things even more effectively in the future. So now, having heard that little quick review, I'd like to introduce the Reverend David Lima, who's not only the HSPN chair, but in his spare time serves as the executive minister of the Interchurch Council of Greater New Bedford. Reverend Lima.
I'd take off my hat, but it's cold, and I just, in case anybody's interested, there's a football game Sunday. We do want to be concerned about that. Listen, I want to echo, and I don't want to name everybody again. The mayor and Jen has done that, but I want to, so please know that you're in my heart. The thing is none of this can happen without the help of everybody. And when I say everybody, it's from the concerned citizen that's calling up and saying, what can I do? That has nothing to do with any of this, right up to and including the mayor's office. Again, I want to thank the mayor, because this city is the only city in the South Coast that puts any money into the overflow shelter, the cold weather overflow shelter. Now, if you woke up this morning and you looked at the weather, I think we came outside and it was in the 20s when I left my house. It's up to the 30s now. That's balmy, because tonight it's supposed to reach 5. And that's without the wind chill. And there's people that are out there in our streets, in our woods, in some alleys that are living in this place. And if you listen to talk radio, and if you listen to some of the crazies that are in coffee shops, did I say, I didn't say crazies. Did I say crazies? I said crazies.
Careful.
The uneducated, what you get is this is their choice, this is what they want, they don't care, this is the way they want to live their lives. I defy anybody to tell me that somebody growing up as a child said, my life, I want to be a homeless person with mental issues. I want to be a homeless person with substance abuse issues. I defy anybody to tell me that this is an aspiration for any child in our community or any other community. Circumstances in life happen. And the fact is, a caring community, a godly community, one that cares about each other, and one that can succeed is the one that will take care of not only the best of the best, but those that are hurting the most. And that's what we do when we take this time to count those that a lot of people would rather not see in our streets and would rather ignore. We walk past them, we might say something about them, at best we just try to avoid them. The truth of the matter is, them is us. That's somebody who had a job at one time. That's somebody who had a marriage or something else, but some circumstance in life, both good and bad, put them in the place they're in. And so we have a choice. We can either do something about it, or we can read about another body that's found. And we have had that, not only in this community, but we've had them all across this country. Right now in Chicago, they're in a major panic, and that's people just living their lives, because we have the polar vortex, and I hear it's around minus 50 in terms of wind chill. We don't have that, thank God. But what we have is not fit for habitation outdoors. A lot of people love camping, but they get the $200 or $400 sleeping bags so they can sleep out in this weather. And those, you know, again, I defy to say that maybe they have some issues too, but that's just me. Bottom line, I want to thank everybody, from Jen Clark spearheading this, bringing everybody together, Joe Meyer, who's been doing this for so long, all the different agencies and all the city departments, because without all of us working together, we can't make a difference. But all of us together, we're saving lives, and that's the goal. And so thank you for coming out, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Reverend Lima. We're grateful for many, many people, as we've said before, who've made this event possible. I just want to reiterate the mayor's thanks with Chief Cadero and his officers, particularly Officer Jared Lizotte. He's already been providing assistance to our office in preparing for the count, and he's going to serve as a wonderful resource for us throughout the duration. We want to thank especially Carl Alves and his team at PACA for opening their doors wide once again, and for allowing us the opportunity of going in there and having this place, this great resource that you have, and having that as our home base tonight. And finally, none of this is possible without the generosity I'd mentioned earlier of so many volunteers. You know, this year, like I said, we have over 100 volunteers from the community that have stepped forward. I got a call from someone just moments ago. At some point, we have to just sort of cap how many people, because we want to make sure that everyone's experience is valuable to them. And we want to make sure we don't overdo and inundate folks that we're trying to serve. So we have been inundated and just moved by the graciousness of the community. So with that, with the agencies, with the professionals within the agencies who do this outside of their own work, they do this out of their hearts, and those who are the corporate donors, I want to mention especially Nuevo Mundo Churrascaria and Sunrise Bakery for donating wonderful food that folks will be enjoying tonight, and the guests that are unsheltered will be coming in and enjoying. So, I mean, it's that kind of local business and great sponsorship that this event has been blessed by. So we're grateful to all of these folks, everyone, individually and collectively, to work in ensuring the success of this event, and that we're grateful to all of you for your support and encouragement for just being here today. So without further delay, I want to thank you all for joining us, and we launch our point-in-time count now. The kickoff is on. Thank you.
Papa!